Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah. Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. Welcome to the program. It is the Tuesday edition of the Big Radio Show. Full boat today. We've got a lot of stuff to go over. We're going to talk with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets with the weekly top three. That's up first. In hour two, we're hoping to hear from, I was waiting on final confirmation, from Joe Bishop-Henchman, who's the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union Foundation, about the best tax, the best tax reform that we could possibly look at. And he's been talking about different types of taxations across the country. And looking at what's best. Of course, Alaska has no taxes. So maybe it's a conversation that we should have right now, although it doesn't look like the legislature's interested in that. So we hope to hear from him in hour two today. Fingers crossed that comes about. And then we'll, of course, finish up with Chris Story, the man from Homer, who's going to come in at the end of the show today to discuss that. So a lot of things. We're already running late this morning, so let's just jump right over into it. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, joins us this morning. Good morning, my friend. How are you doing?
Michael, I'm great. I sort of got the memo this morning. A little blue.
It is what it is. I got to remember to send that the night before, and I keep forgetting. So good. All right, Brad. Well, we keep hoping that the adults in the room will be adulting, but it turns out that that seems to not be the case. We're going to jump into the weekly top three. Number one, how House Finance hath embarrassed themselves. Let's get into it.
Michael, the members of the House Finance, indeed, all the members of the legislature, I would wager, governor, all the governor candidates have all run on at least one platform that's the same across the board. And that is Alaska needs a fiscal plan. Alaska needs to get its fiscal house in order, to get a solid foundation set on the fiscal side. And then we can start, working on other things once we have that solid foundation set. And I am sure that those representatives that when elected, when they caucused, put themselves forward for House Finance as the committee they want to be on the platform that they would work on a fiscal plan. They were committed to working on a fiscal plan to lay that foundation for the state and move it forward. Governor Dunleavy, it took him 7 years, but Governor Dunleavy finally proposes a fairly complete fiscal plan. Has holes in it, but the building blocks are there. In last Friday's column in the Landmine, I put those building blocks together and showed how you can get a balanced budget at a POMV 50/50 PFD through the next 10 years and beyond. He put the building blocks there to start working on a fiscal plan. And every legislator would have run on a platform of we need a fiscal plan. They would have run when they ran to be put on House Finance on, we need a fiscal plan and I'm willing to work on it. Dunleavy puts the plan out there. The Department of Revenue comes to talk about the plan. Dunleavy also, before that, has ICER do a new study, a 10-year update on the 2016 study, a very important study that we'll be talking about for probably the next decade until we do the next update. But ICER does a very detailed study that has a lot of good data in it that you need to dig into to understand. And I've been digging into it since the day that they published it, and I'm still finding new things as I go through it. ICER puts a plan out there. The governor finances ICER, doing the research and independent research to put together the components of a fiscal plan, not a full fiscal plan. ICER didn't do that, but to analyze the components that would go into a fiscal plan and enable you to sort of see what those components would do. They come to a hearing last week before the legislature, and I got to admit, I was just embarrassed for the members of the legislature. Now, the legislature is trying to spin this that they're embarrassed about how the administration performed in this hearing. But it was a put-up job. I mean, it was the legislature who was setting the tone. It was the legislature asking the questions. It was the legislature making the statements. And they were just looking for opportunities to pick at the administration. Oh, you didn't do this. Oh, you didn't do that. Oh, you didn't do this other thing. And it was just an embarrassing performance by the House Finance Committee members all the way around the circle, from the chairman down to the newest member on the Republican side. It was just an embarrassing performance all the way around. None of them started with or led with, okay, you've put some building blocks out there. We can start working with this to put together a fiscal plan, like I promised my constituents when I ran, and like I promised my fellow representatives when I ran for House Finance. We can see some building blocks. We need to get ICER in here. We need to understand that study better. We need to start seeing what the implications are of these various pieces. None of the legislators did that. To a person, as you go around the table, to a person, they nitpicked, they argued, they tried to undermine, they picked on the fact that the Department of Revenue hadn't researched to the nth degree every aspect of the plan. Notwithstanding the fact the usual tone in these hearings is, well, will you get back to me on that? Will you study that and get back to me on that? Not, have you studied it in advance of this hearing thinking that I may think it up? And if you didn't, oh, you're just a horrible person. Usually in these hearings, it's, will you get back to me on that? None of the tone of the legislature was like that. And it's just, I mean, it's embarrassing that we have a House Finance Committee, one of the major committees in the legislature, one of the two biggest major committees in the legislature with Senate Finance. We have a committee that was just satisfied with nitpicking and with just, trying to undermine the study because they hadn't studied every aspect of it to death on the date, before the date that they came out and rolled it out to the committee. And the other thing about this, Michael, is we have a whole ICER study that's just packed full of information, and in fact answers a ton of the questions that the House Finance Committee members asked. I will say that I'm a little disappointed that the Department of Revenue wasn't as familiar with the ICER study and could say, well, the ICER study says this, but we have a full ICER study that has a lot of data, tells you a lot of different things. And the legislature is now, according to the headlines yesterday in the Alaska Beacon by James Brooks, Alaska legislators say governor's fiscal plan is likely dead after first week of hearings. It's not first week, it's first day of hearings, is likely dead, without even scheduling up ICER to walk through a lot of the issues that the legislators raised. It's just, I mean, it's embarrassing. We have a House Finance Committee that really doesn't care and really isn't committed to getting a fiscal plan. They just want to score political points, right, political coup as they go by. So my takeaway from this is, to a member, including the Republican members that claim otherwise, to a member, they're just satisfied with letting the PFD go. They don't want to put together a fiscal plan that would actually save the PFD, even in a reduced form. They don't want to put together a fiscal plan that would actually allow the legislature to plan from year to year to year. They just want to continue to ride on the PFD until the end of it. They'll say they don't want to, but to a person, none of them picked up on the governor's offering, picked up on the building blocks that the governor put out there, picked up on the opportunity of the ICER. To a person, none of them picked up on that and said, okay, let's start building a plan from here. Let's take what the governor's proposed. Let's take the building blocks that are in there and let's start putting together a plan. To a person, none of them did that. And what that leaves, the only way you balance the budget, if you're not going to have a fiscal plan that includes at least some alternative revenues and some spending caps and some other things the governor proposed, what that leaves is the PFD. And they seem to be content. And I'm talking to the Republican members who say they aren't. They seem to be content with just squeezing the PFD to the end. They'll be complaining about it. Oh my gosh, we need a fiscal plan,
right?
To preserve it. But they seem content to just squeeze it out until the end.
You know what? Well, and that again, that Commonwealth North thing that we went over yesterday with Kathy Giesel, where she's talking about all the things that the $685 million could have been spent on, backfilling Medicaid and SNAP and everything else. I mean, let alone all the other things. They're all, again, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They're going to take the PFD, folks. That's what it's about. But what killed me was all the different comments, and there was 3 or 4 different comments, all basically paraphrasing them, smashing them all together, basically said, we just don't have time to do all this year. We just don't have time. I mean, we've only got 3.5 or 4 months, but we just don't have time to go through all this. And, where was this before? Why did he wait to the last minute? Not like we couldn't do it ourselves. Not like we couldn't pull it all together. Not like Ben Carpenter didn't try and do some of these things, over the last 2 years or anything else. But, it's too little too late. So we're only left with one thing, and that's taking the PFD, which we'll be sorry about, but we're going to do it anyway.
The thing about that is the governor offered 2 things. One, he offered the fiscal plan, and he funded the ICER study. And the ICER study answers a lot of questions. It may answer all the questions as you get into the nuts and bolts of it, but it answers a lot of questions, and it really short circuits a lot of the work that the legislature is complaining that they would have to do. I mean, so the legislature would say, well, what's the effect of doing a sales tax this way? Or what's the regional effect of doing it that way? The 2016 ICER study answers the regional impacts. What's the effect of mixing these two together? What's the effect of that? It's there. And it really, I mean, yes, it would take work. It would take hard work. But that's what you run for the finance committee to do. And you ran on to your constituents saying you want to have a fiscal plan. You're there to help develop a fiscal plan. Well, do the friggin' work to develop the fiscal plan. It's just, right. It's embarrassing to have a legislature that's charged with doing what's in the best interest of Alaska and just, entirely just, completely muffing the ball and being proud of the fact that somehow right. they muffed the ball.
Well, and I love how yesterday, again, Natasha von Imhoff from that Commonwealth thing was like, well, they got this ICER report, but why didn't they call Wood Mackenzie? Why didn't they call so-and-so? Why didn't they call, I encourage the legislature to pull their own study in and do more to study the study that studied the study before. And because apparently ICER is just not good enough, but that's already the direction that they're going.
It's delay, Michael. All of this is just delay tactics to excuse inaction on the part of the legislature, to excuse not doing the work on the part of the legislature. I mean, why didn't you have, somebody from Britain study something? Because that might have had some contributory effect. It's just, it's all one effort at delay after delay after delay after delay, knowing what that does is lead you to the PFD cuts.
Yeah, well, it's leading us to destruction. That's what it is, because they just don't want to. Final word on this segment, Rob Myers gets it. He says, in 2020, we passed the budget in 2 weeks. In 2008, we completely overhauled the oil tax code in 2 months. It's not about time. It's about whether we want to. And that's 100% right there on it. All right, Brad, we're coming up on the break. We got more coming up. Number 2 is Dead Ahead, the weekly top 3. We're going to try and strap Brad down a little bit. He's a little wound up about this. It's not that he shouldn't be. Oh, man. All right, we're going to be back with more of the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We got more coming up right after this.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Duke Show.
Yeah, tell me how you really feel, Brad. I mean, this is just this is so irritating to watch these guys just go at it and lay every excuse in the book in front of us. But again, everybody's saying, well, we just don't. If only he'd put this out last year or the year before or 7 years ago, we would have had time to go through it. And yeah, just this whole thing of, we just couldn't do that to Alaskans. We just couldn't do that to Alaskans. We couldn't hurt them financially by doing this. Instead, we're just going to take the PF. I mean, right? I mean, that's what it keeps coming back to. Oh, how is this going to hurt? How is this going to affect Alaska? Where was your concern when you started taking thousands of dollars from Alaskans in the form of a PFD cut? I mean, where was that?
And there's no recognition. I mean, Nellie Jimmy, I started laughing at as she went on. I mean, there's no recognition that a piece of this is a restoration of a significant share of the PFD back to POMV 50/50. So that's putting cash in their hands. No recognition of that. It's all, oh my God, you're taking cash out of Alaskans' hands. You're going to be taking cash out of rural Alaskans' hands through the sales tax, or you're going to be taking cash out of various groups. Name the group, AML. You're going to be taking cash out of our members if you do this. No recognition that it's a two-step process. The first step is to put big cash back in their hands, to take that cash out of being used as credits to protect non-residents and others from paying taxes, putting cash back in the hands of real Alaskans. And then yes, there is a tax, but that tax takes much less than what you've put back in their hands in terms of PFDs. And the net for 80% of Alaska families, when you go through the ICER study, when you go through the ITEP study before it, when you go through the 2016 ICER study, they all say the same thing. The net is that 80% of Alaskans end up better off by putting that money in their hands, even if you have to use taxes to raise additional monies. No recognition of that. None. It's just, I mean, it is horrible. There is no legislator on House Finance that I would, unfortunately, I've already given money to one of them, but there's no legislator on House Finance that I would donate to now. They're just all useless.
How about the resurrection of well, I'm just not going to tax somebody to give everybody else free money. Not that it was dead, but I mean, they brought it back up. Will Stapp is quoted, I'm just not going to take money from people and give it to other people. It was already
That's not what's going on. Again, look at the ICER study. Again, talk through that statement. Ask that statement of somebody who's done the study. And the answer is, what you're doing is you're taking money through the sales tax. You're taking money increasingly from non-residents to allow residents to keep money in their pockets. There's a 20% difference in the ICER study. There's a 20% difference between the amount taken out of Alaskans' pockets through PFD cuts and the amount taken out of Alaskan pockets by using a broad-based sales tax. 20% difference. Alaskans keep 20% more money in their pockets by taking it out through a sales tax as opposed to taking it out through PFD cuts. We're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. We are broadening the base so that non-residents, as occurs in every other state in one form or another, so that non-residents are contributing to the cost of Alaska government. And through a sales tax, we have a significant amount of contribution that comes from non-residents. When Alaskans go to another state, 40 seconds. When Alaskans go to another state, they contribute to the cost of government in that state, either through a sales tax or if they work in that state through an income tax. Alaskans get no benefit from non-residents coming up here. The governor's proposal did that. It broadened the base, and staff and others who ignore it they're anti-Alaska family. They want to protect non-residents, oil companies, and others at the expense of Alaska families.
And there you have it. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. The weekly top 3 continues. Just shocking where we're at on this 100% for sure. Folks, please like and share if you would. We would love to get more people involved in this conversation rather than the 50 or 60 that we normally have. Let's get more folks here. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Well, I did my best to stir Brad up a little bit more during the break, so hopefully we get this. It's going to be high speed, low drag. Number 2 of the weekly top 3, where the legislature lets perfect become the enemy of good. Brad?
We've talked about it in the first segment. We talked about it over the break. We're going to continue talking about it here because it's just so infuriating and it's so counterintuitive to what's in the best interest of Alaska. So legislators, including those who purport to be concerned about middle and lower income Alaska families, who purported, like Elise Galvin, like Nellie Jimmy, like Neil Foster, and others who say, our primary concern is looking out for middle and lower income Alaska families. It's not. I mean, so what happened was we have the governor's proposal that's a sales tax, and admittedly a sales tax is more regressive than an income tax, but it is certainly less regressive, hugely less regressive than PFD cuts, which is what we've had and what we'll continue to have if we don't have a substitute for it. They all, Neil, Nellie, Elise, all chimed in on the let's dump on sales tax proposal because it's bad, because it might increase costs in one way for Alaska families as a result of its slight regressivity. They didn't even ask what the regressivity was. The regressivity of the sales tax that Governor Dunling proposed is very slight because it's so broad and it picks up so many things that upper income families buy and certainly non-residents buy. The regressivity line is fairly slight, certainly compared to certainly compared to PFD cuts and other ways that you could construct sales taxes or other tax approaches. But nonetheless, they let the enemy be the perfect, the perfect be the enemy of the good by saying, oh, well, it's not perfect. It's not a progressive income tax, to use Elise Galvin's words. It's not something else, to use Nellie Jimmy's words. They let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I don't think that they really care about that. There was a couple. Matt Buxton is a former reporter, now a blogger, proudly on the progressive side of things, writes from a progressive viewpoint, blogs from a progressive viewpoint. He has a blog. The title of the blog is the Alaska Memo, and it's a good read. I mean, Matt puts together words in a good way, and it's coherent. He had two blog posts, very close together, that just highlight how uncaring Even the progressive side is about the impact of what's going on, the impact of the fiscal policy that we have currently on middle and lower income Alaska families. The first one is from May 2nd or February 2nd. It's titled The Alaska Disconnect, and the subtitle is ultimately, as the report outlines, he's talking about the ICER report, the question of who pays is not just about Alaskans versus non-residents, but poor and middle-income Alaska, middle-class Alaska versus ultra-wealthy Alaska. And that blog mostly concentrates on the fact that we have this income divide, as we've talked about, income gap, as we've talked on the show before, between upper-income Alaska families and middle and lower-income Alaska families. This huge divide, but in the state, and talks about how tax policies affect those income groups differently. Basically, goes down the ICER study, and focuses on the fact that middle and lower income Alaska families are paying a lot more through PFD cuts, having a lot more adverse impact on their economic situation through PFD cuts than upper income Alaska families are, and that it's having a significant adverse impact on middle and lower income Alaska families. That is his blog on February 2nd. On February 6th, in response to the Dunleavy plan, he comes out with a blog that says this, headlined, legislators, local governments, and Alaskans pan Dunleavy's silly sales tax pitch. Dunleavy's, and the subheadline is, Dunleavy's flimsy fiscal plan ran into one of the most thorough demolitions of a bill to take place over the course of a single legislative day. And it goes through and says how the sales tax is horrible, and the sales taxes, would pile up costs on middle and lower income Alaska families, that it's regressive, and that it would hit families in the bush. Not a word in this blog, in this post, about the fact it would be a heck of a lot better than PFD cuts. It would put more money. You would end up with more money in the pockets, positive money in the pockets of middle and lower income Alaska families, with the trade-off of replacing PFD cuts with sales taxes. Not a word about that in this blog. So you go in the span of 4 days from a headline talking about the Alaska disconnect and how horrible it is that middle and lower income Alaska families are being hurt through PFD cuts, and about how the Alaska fiscal system is tilted against middle and lower income Alaska families. 4 days to a blog that talks about Dunleavy's silly sales tax pitch and flimsy fiscal plan, without mentioning the impact of restoring the PFD to a POMV 50/50. I don't think progressives, even progressives, care about middle and lower income Alaska families. I think what this is exposing is that progressives care more about government spend and more about them being able to direct what income flows into, or what benefits flow to middle and lower income Alaska families. I think this exposes that they care more about their control over it than they do actually about middle and lower income Alaska families having more economic staying power. I think what it's showing is they don't really care about the circumstances facing middle and lower income Alaska families. They only care about what the government is able to do. The government having enough money to, be a hero and come in and do all these things for middle and lower income Alaska families. And the easiest way to get money, because you don't want to talk about taxes, the easiest way to get money is to just keep the PFD up in the air and allow the legislature to continue siphoning from the PFD to fund the programs that they believe are important to middle and lower income Alaska families. The hypocrisy of what that hearing, the House Finance hearing, revealed about progressives, revealed about Republicans who claim they're all in favor of preserving PFDs. The hypocrisy that it revealed about progressives, and the hypocrisy that it revealed about their concerns and others' concerns for middle and lower income Alaska families, I think is huge. And the same thing on the Republican side. I mean, you have Republicans who ran on, we got to find ways to preserve the PFD. We got to find ways to make sure that money gets to Alaskans' pockets. Well, the governor proposed a way to do exactly that, to make sure that middle and lower income Alaska families are better off now than they have been for the last 7 years. Finally, the governor finally got around to proposing a way to do that. And a big part of that way is to restoring the PFD back up to POMV 50/50. And then you have Republicans run away from that. Republicans who ran on finding a way to preserve the PFD. You have Republicans running away from that. So I think the hearing was huge in terms of what it revealed about the motivations of both sides. Neither side really cares.
Well, I mean,
about middle and lower income Alaska.
No, Brad, the one thing that they care about, and I've been saying this for years, is that they control the spend, because in their heart of hearts, they know better than you how to spend your money. That's what it's about. As long as they control where the money goes, as long as they are in charge of it, then they're satisfied, and they will not give an inch or take under consideration any plan that would remove from them the ability to make those decisions. They want to control and plan the economy, right? They don't want the free market to work. They don't want it out of their control. That's what it's about. This is about control and knowing better than us how that money should be spent.
And it's both Democrats and Republicans, Michael. I mean, it's not just
absolutely.
It's not just Democrats. It's both Democrats and Republicans.
That's the Giesel thing the other day. It's $685 million that we're wasting on giving to the public. We could spend those things on so many great things like SNAP and Medicaid and housing and all these other things. This is truly what they believe.
Yep. And it's across the board. I mean, what we've done, and I've done analyses for several columns in the Alaska Landmine that shows this. What we've done is we have elected a bunch of upper income Alaskans. I mean, they can't avoid being upper income because the legislative pay has been increased to the level that it puts them in the upper income. Even if they don't have any outside income, they're upper income. We've elected a bunch of upper income upper income Alaskans who are dependent on donors who are in the upper income, and we don't limit contributions anymore. So you have unlimited donations coming in from upper income families and non-residents and corporations coming into these legislators. We've elected an upper income looking out for legislature, and they just make excuses. I mean, just like the hearing attacking the governor over the sales tax, they just make excuses for why they don't do anything else, knowing that if they can pick at what anybody comes up with, that they will be able to maintain using the PFD, maintain using the source that has the lowest impact on upper income and non-residents and the corporations. You know, Elise Galvin, I can just go off on for days, but Elise Galvin says, I've proposed a progressive income tax. I think that's the solution. If you look at Elise Galvin's progressive income tax, it's like this thin veneer on top of continued deep PFD cuts. It raises maybe 100. Keep in mind that the deficits are 1.6 billion. Elise Galvin's income tax raises 100 million or 150 million, maybe on a good day, even 200 million. A fraction of what the deficits are. How does she raise the remainder of the deficits? PFD cuts. So she goes around saying, I've got this proposal that would be better for lower and middle. No, it wouldn't. Once you put the PFD cut portion with the thin veneer of a progressive income tax that she's proposed, it's still more regressive for middle and lower income Alaska families than a sales tax. Yes, she's got a piece of it that's a progressive income tax. Yes, she claims that she's proposed an income tax. But when you look at how much it raises compared to the deficit and compared to how much has to continue to be raised through PFD cuts, it itself is regressive, hugely regressive because of the PFD component with it. None of them are serious about looking out for Alaskans. None of them are serious about looking out for middle and lower income Alaska families. I mean, the ICER study says, look, I can get the share of what Alaskans are having to bear of the deficit down from 86% down to 68%. I can get it down almost 20 percentage points by moving from PFD cuts to a broad-based sales tax. That's huge. Being able to offload 20% of the deficit to non-residents is huge. None of them picked up on that. All of them just said, "Oh, well, it's just regressive,"
right?
To Alaska families, without taking into account the impact on non-residents and how much would be raised from non-residents. They don't care. We've elected people who don't care about Alaska families.
They care about one thing. And that is being in control of that money and spending the money. That's what they care about. Because as you point out, I mean, I keep hearing about, well, what about this sales tax and what would it do to the bush? Well, what would it do to the bush if each person got an additional $2,000 a year, in the form of a 50-50 PFD? What if they got another couple 3,000, overall, or they got a $3,000 dividend? I mean, how much would that offset that as well? Yeah, it may look bad on the one side, but when you don't include the upkeep on the other side, that's where you got a minute here.
Well, the problem with the Bush is that they've survived. They've put all of their local costs on sales taxes. So when you add in the state income tax, yes, you get high numbers. But if you look at just the state income tax component with the PFD restoration component, if you look at just that, it's positive for the Bush. Not only is it positive for urban Alaska, it's positive for the Bush. But none of the House finance members recognize that.
No, they don't want to take that at all. Brad Keithley, our guest. The Michael Duke Show continues. One more. Tim just said, you think you have another 25 years in you to keep this discussion going? Oh, I don't think we'll make it another 25 years before the cliff hits us, and we're going to have to make those decisions whether we want to or not. Brad Keithley, our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Duke Show.
Brad Keithley, our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Oh, man. And then Frank just drops this on us. He said, non-residents are already paying over 50% of our budget. Brad wants more big government because everyone else does it. And, of course, his 50% is what he's talking about is the federal dollars that come into the state. That's what he's saying there. The federal dollars that come into the state is already non-resident. That's not, I mean, it's an apples to oranges comparison, and it's not what we're talking about. Every state receives federal funds. Maybe we receive more than others. But the bottom line is that's not non-resident money. That's tax. Those are federal tax dollars that are coming, which come from other people. Don't get me wrong. But it's not an apples to oranges comparison, Brad.
Oh, it's not. I mean, that's an example of, let's pick at something. Let's make up a fact that's entirely irrelevant to the current discussion. Let's make up a fact that's entirely irrelevant to the current discussion and say that undermines your point. It's not. It doesn't. What we're talking about is unrestricted general funds. What we're talking about is how you raise unrestricted general funds. And currently we're raising unrestricted general funds and almost entirely, at least the deficit portion, almost entirely on the back of Alaska families. Non-residents are contributing zero to covering the unrestricted general fund deficit that the state is running.
It's it's frustrating to watch, but Brad, I mean, what do you think at this point? Watching the behavior or watching what just happened in this finance committee meeting and everything else, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, is this thing just going to have to come off the rails before anybody is willing to actually look at the problem? Is that what's going to have to happen? Is the PFD going to be gone, and then we're going to be back the following year with a tax discussion, and it's not going to generate enough, and they're going to be fighting? And I mean, what is it going to take?
With this legislature, with these House Finance Committee members, including the newest one on the Republican side, with these House Finance Committee members, I think we are headed for absorbing the entire PFD. They say they don't want to, but they're not willing to do anything that prevents that from coming about. They're not willing to do anything that protects middle and lower income Alaska families from the burdens that they're imposing on them. With this legislature, with this reaction, with the statements that they've made, I mean, even Mike Cronk, who you would think is one of the most conservative people in the legislature. He's not. Mike Kronk sided with Kathy Giesel and Natasha von Imhoff and others who say, well, we just need to take the PFD. You can't have taxes while you still have a PFD. We're running deeper and deeper into deficits. You're absorbing more and more of the PFD. You're essentially giving up on the PFD. Even Mike Kronk, with legislators like that, frankly, middle and lower income Alaska families have no chance in the league.
This is what, just so that everybody knows, this is what Mike Kronk said. He said, I'm a logic person. We're going to tax those people that are productive so everyone gets a check. That doesn't work for me. That's just not logical to me. Making more of the same, making more of the same arguments, and quite honestly, the Senate's worse than the House. Again, you could just go back and listen to that Commonwealth thing and hear Kathy Giesel, just almost the anger and the disdain for the fact that they had to spend $685 million on a PFD. They're just angry about it. You could see Stedman sometimes. He gets worked up about it. You just, why do we have to spend this money? We could do so much better with that than you could.
Michael, it's not about the spend. I'm not saying they can't spend, they shouldn't spend, go spend to your heart's content. It's about how you raise the money to spend. And using PFD cuts, they're raising money only from Alaskans, taking money only from Alaskans, and they're raising it in a way that has the largest adverse impact on middle and lower income Alaska families. Spend all you want. Giesel, von Imhoff, Stedman, spend all you want. But it's how you're raising the money to fund that spend. And by doing PFD cut, Kronk, but by doing PFD cuts, you're taking it only from Alaskans, and you're taking it largely from middle and in a way that has the largest adverse impact on middle and lower income Alaska families. Sales tax, you get 42% of a sales tax from non-residents. You get 42%. That's not right. 32%. There we go. 32% of your revenue, nearly a third of your revenue from non-residents. Alaskans would pay nearly a third less, would be responsible for a third less of the money because you would raise nearly a third from non-residents. Raise it that way. Reduce the impact on the money you're taking from Alaska families. But no, they know they'd have to sell their programs then. They'd have to explain why we need revenues for their programs. Through PFDs, they just grab the money and go, even though it has this huge adverse impact on Alaska families.
Don't worry. Let them eat cake. That's why we have all those programs for those people. That was the other thing. Oh, we need those monies for those forget about the middle class that doesn't benefit from either the welfare state or the corporate cronyism state. Forget about the middle class. The middle class is the one getting squeezed to death on this.
Exactly right.
All right, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Time to go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
All right, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top three. We got more data. Brad's working on more data here. The real significance of the out-of-state worker data, which they just talked about, how fully a quarter or a third of out-of-state of work in the state is done by out-of-state workers. But Brad dove down into that data and got a little bit more on it. Brad?
There's a theme for this week's program, and it will come out in this one. The James Brooks, the article on the new study from the Department of Labor is in a James Brooks article in the Alaska Beacon from a couple of days ago, 4 days ago. The headline is "Almost 1 in 4 Alaska workers doesn't live in the state," new report concludes. And it goes on to talk about the growth that Alaska's had in non-resident workers, and they now take up more than a fifth, 22.9% of the workers in the state. A lot of people are saying, well, that shows how much of an influx we have for non-residents. I look at those numbers a little bit differently. What those numbers tell me is we have jobs. Alaska has jobs for a lot of people. Alaska has more jobs than we have people in the state to fill those jobs. And what that number really is telling me is we are not attracting workers to fill those jobs. We have 25% more jobs that could be filled by Alaskans that aren't, because we don't have the workers in Alaska to fill the jobs. So why aren't people coming to Alaska? Why aren't people coming to fill those jobs? If we have the jobs, and most corporations and most employers have preferences for Alaska workers, if we have the jobs, why aren't people coming to Alaska to fill those jobs? It's not because we have taxes. It's not because we have an income tax. We've driven people out. We don't. It's not because we have a sales tax, and that would unfairly affect some group of Alaskans. We don't. We're not pushing those people out through tax policy. So why are we pushing them out? And if you look at the income data, which I do, periodically, once a month, I try to dig into the income data and include it in a post. If you look at the income data, what we have is a situation in which Alaska income, both compared to nationally and compared to upper income families, is dropping. It is dropping in terms of real terms. There is some growth in nominal terms, that is, the numbers increase year after year. But after you factor in inflation, and you look at those numbers after inflation in real terms, real economic terms, the number is either staying steady or it's dropping slightly. Alaska is not producing the income that is needed to attract working Alaska families, working class Alaska families, middle and lower income Alaska families. We're not generating the income, and it's not because we're taking it out in taxes, either a sales tax or income tax. Alaska is not generating the income to attract those families. Where along in there did we start having serious problems? Not just problems, but serious problems. Oh, about the time we started cutting the PFD. About the time that the PFD would have started increasing, the returns from the permanent fund investments would have started increasing the PFD in a fairly substantial way, putting more money in the pockets of middle and lower income Alaska families. We didn't tax them in the normal way through income tax or sales tax. We started taking money out of their pockets by cutting the PFD. And so what we have is we have jobs in Alaska. We have the potential to have more people in Alaska because we have the jobs for them if they would come up. But they're not coming. It's not because of tax policy that they're not coming. It's because we're not putting income in their pockets. The jobs aren't paying enough to attract them. And the state's program, or the state's approach of putting a portion of the commonly held wealth directly in the pockets of its citizens is increasingly being cut. We're cutting our own throat. And so when we talk about the share of non-resident income, or the non-resident workers that are coming into the state, and express all this concern about that, and express, some legislators say, oh, well, we need more childcare, or, oh, we need more this, or we need more that, or we need more SNAP, or we need more we need more income in their pockets. We need to attract them by saying, you're going to earn more if you're up here. You're going to have a better economic life if you're up here than you do where you are elsewhere. We got a job for you. We got programs that share the commonly owned wealth with you, and you're going to have a better life, a better economic life when you're up here. But we don't do that. We do the reverse, and so it just sort of sickens me when some say, income tax will drive people out of the state. We're already driving people out of the state. We already have net out migration. We're already not attracting people to the state.
And you've talked about how the largest segment that's leaving right now are those working age, working class families. Those are the ones that are leaving. Again, that middle class is being squeezed out. That's where the net outflow is coming from.
Exactly right. We're growing in terms of upper income families. We're growing in terms of people in the top 20%. We are growing. They're growing both in terms of income, real income, and they're growing in terms of numbers. As the state population expands, they're growing in number as well. More and more are coming into the upper income upper income brackets. Where we're losing people is in the middle and lower income brackets. And it's economics. It's just fundamental economics. So when people say, oh, we can't have an income tax, we'll drive them out of the state. We're already driving them out of the state. What we need is an economic program that leaves more money in their pockets, leaves more money, more of the commonly owned wealth in their pockets than we do currently.
Yeah, Brian says crime, failing schools, low wages, and no PFD, and a legislature that seems increasingly hostile to its citizenry. Why would you move here? That's essentially it. Why would you move here?
Yeah, well, we're finding out that people aren't moving here, and when you look at the income side, when you look at the net income, the real income that the middle and lower income Alaska families, working age Alaska families are encountering, the answer is obvious. They're not gaining any, where the national average is going up. They're not gaining any, and in fact, they're losing a little bit on a real income basis.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. 90 seconds, Brad, here. Can you leave us on a high note, or are we just, is this all just waiting for the train to actually hit the bridge?
It's not that we don't have alternatives. We do. Governor Dunleavy laid out some of them. He laid out building blocks that we could use to build a balanced, fair fiscal policy. He laid out building blocks that we could use to put together to get this state out of its deficits in a way that didn't adversely impact middle and lower income Alaska families. In fact, made their lives better. It's not that we don't have the building blocks to be able to do this. We do. The ICER study tells us we do, and how we can, and shows how, through their analysis shows how we could put them together. We have the building blocks. We don't have the people in place in the legislature willing to take the steps to put it together. And the report card on it is in the Department of Labor study that finds people leaving the state, net outflow in working age Alaska families. That's the report card the legislature's getting. They're not attracting people to the state. In fact, they're pushing people out of the state. That needs to change, and they have the tools to do it.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Brad, thanks so much for coming on board.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
Folks, hour 2 dead ahead, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Be kind, love one another, live well if you got to go. We'll see you in hour 2. Okay, that brings us back to our final thoughts. I guess final thoughts on this, Brad, because I just don't know what to do. I've been talking about this for 25 years. You and I have been talking about this going on 12 years. And it's just more of the same. It's just more of the same. We've changed out 60%, 65% of the legislature in the last, 6-7 years. And yet it's just more of the same.
We elect, is part of it, Michael, is we elect people who say one thing, who talk a good game when they're running, who talk about, being concerned about working age Alaska family, working class Alaska families, who talk about, maintaining the PFD, who talk about limiting the scope of government, limiting the increase in government costs, who talk a good game about that, but then don't follow through. And you can say, well, maybe it's the leadership once they get down to Juneau, maybe it's the Juneau bubble, maybe it's, the fact that they were lying to their constituents. Maybe it's the fact that they just don't know any better and they're just, being led along by the nose. It's probably a combination of all of those things. But that's what's happening. We're electing people who are talking a good game and then are running away from it when the rubber hits the road down in Juneau. And it's, I don't know how you fix that.
Well,
I don't know. When people lie to you, when people tell you one thing and then don't follow through on it, and you elect them because they're saying the right things, you donate to them because they're saying the right things, and then they don't follow through on it. I don't know how you fix that. You don't donate to them anymore, but
right. Well, Rob has been talking about this in his series, and again, he talks about the structures and the incentives that are baked into this system, and that's what needs to change. And he says right now, after changing out 75% of the legislature in the last decade of this problem, it looks highly unlikely we'll get different results by electing new people without structural change. We've got to change the incentivization. and the structure of that before we put new bodies in the chairs.
But those bodies that are already in the chair are the ones that vote on whether there's structural change.
That's
I
true.
mean,
It's a chicken and egg problem. I mean, it really is.
So we've elected people who say they will help bring about the structural change, and then they don't. Mike Cronk, if there was ever a guy who you would think would be sticking to, what's good for middle and lower income Alaska families, what's good for Alaska families overall, how to reduce the burden on them by shifting a significant portion of it to non-residents. If there was ever a guy you thought was going to do that, it would be Mike Cronk. He's just walked the exact opposite way. And I mean, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with people who won't follow through, who don't follow through on what they say they're going to do? How do you deal with people who, sign on for one thing when they're running and then walk away once they get down to Juneau? You vote them out, but you got to vote somebody in who will do it differently. And as Rob says, and as Michael, you say, we have replaced a bunch of these legislators, but we've just replaced them with people who do the same things once they get to Juneau.
Right. Well, at least you've got to have somebody who has the flexibility of when they hit the ground and realize that there's a major crisis, instead of poo-pooing the suggestions that are placed in front of them, then you should come up with an alternative instead of just poo-pooing it.
Or you should study the one that's in front of you. You should say, okay, thanks for the presentation. Let me think about this. We'll get back to you and we'll start working on this together. Instead of, the day after the hearing saying, well, that's dead. We're not doing that this session. Maybe we'll do it in future sessions. No, you won't. You're just happy to keep riding the PFD on down. That's what this has shown. Every member of House Finance has shown they're just happy to keep riding the PFD on down. It's just disgusting.
Yeah. Well, and you watch it and you see this going on over and over and over again. And at some point, I think this is why people at some point just throw their hands up and go, they walk away. They walk away from, they're going to they're going to do what they're going to do. If I can live with it, I can. If I can't, I'm going to leave. Because that's where they're at, right? I mean, that's where they're at right now. They can't deal with this anymore. They can't deal with the fight because they're just exhausted by it. I feel that. Like I said, you and I have been fighting this for over a decade. I've been fighting it for 2.5. I mean, and at some point you just got to go, nobody's listening. Nobody gives a shit. It just doesn't matter anymore. So we're just going to pull the plug and walk away.
You fight and you think you've made progress. You think you've elected somebody, you've contributed to somebody, you've elected somebody who's going to make a difference. And then they don't.
Yeah.
And then they are part of a committee that just dumps on the administration when the administration tries to propose something. It wasn't perfect. I mean, there's a bunch of holes in it and things that needs to be done to make it workable. But at least it was an effort. Came 7 years too late, but at least it was an effort to start building, putting the building blocks together to solve this problem. They don't want to solve the problem. None of the House Finance Committee members, as you go around that table, none of them want to solve the problem. They're all perfectly happy to keep the problem, so they can talk about it. Ooh, it's a problem. You need to reelect me so I can solve that problem. But to keep it going without solving it.
Well, and I think it's an indication of what I just said when Kevin says we in this chat are all agree, but the majority of the comments for those of us who got elected are receiving from Alaskans are not the same that we see in here. Because again, they've discovered they can vote themselves largesse out of the Treasury, and they don't want to stop the gravy train. And everybody else like us has gotten so frustrated, we just walked away, threw our hands up and said, F it, we're done. And they're not, because why? We had 4 hours of commentary here a few years ago about the PFD that was 4 hours, 99% positive. And in the end, they're like, well, you just don't understand. Right? I mean, you just don't understand. All right, Brad, I got to let you go. Thank you for coming on board. Take some blood pressure medication and a drink. That's all I can say. Thanks so much.
Michael, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, my friend. Good to see and hear from you. All right, folks, we got to go. We're going to hit this Natasha thing because I don't think Joe's going to be with us. We're going to be back. The Michael Duke Show.
Whoa,
buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast. Welcome to the party, pal. The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Welcome to Hour 2. We just finished up with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Oh man, it's painful to watch this stuff go on. I thought we were going to have a chance this hour to talk with Joe Bishop-Henchman from the National Taxpayers Union Foundation. Looks like we're going to have to put that off to another day this next week. Maybe we'll continue our discussions, or maybe later this week. We'll continue our discussions on taxes with him and tax reform in the states with him when we get to that. But we just finished up with Brad, and look, there's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of frustration in this, and during the top of the hour here, we were finishing up with Brad, and we were making the comment that at some point people get frustrated with this. He said, "How do we fix it? We elect new people, they go down there, and they become the new problem. They become the pod people." And I think that's why we've seen a lot of disconnect from what we have, from what we're feeling, what we think and what we see, what the politicians and the candidates say when they're trying to get elected, and then they go down there and they change completely around, and once more we're stymied or we're flummoxed by what's going on. At what point do we all just get, I think that it's what's happening is people are just throwing their hands up in the air and they're like, no, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't, 4 years ago, they had a huge hearing on the PFD. Do you remember this? It was like 4 hours of testimony, 4 or 5 hours. I mean, there was a couple hundred people who got on the telephone and everything else, and they went down there and testified, and 94, 95. It was out of the 200 people that testified, there was like 3 that were, oh, fine, take my PFD. And the rest of them were like, take your hands off the PFD, get us back to where we need to be. And at the end, Andy Josephson just says, well, it's great that we got all this testimony, but you guys just don't understand. You just don't understand. I mean, that's all nice and everything, but we just can't do that. And people just throw their hands up in the air and they go, I'm done. I'm done with it. I'm through. And you add to that the madness that is national politics in this country, in this day and age, of people who are just like, I just don't care. I can't even pay attention. I can't even do it anymore. And it's forcing more and more people, kind of moderate, middle of the road people who just, they care about what's going on, but at some point they just can't care anymore. They just can't care anymore. And they walk away. And that's kind of where we're at today, where they just throw their hands in the air and they say, you know what, I'm out of here. And Sourdough Steel in the chat room says, that's exactly where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at. I mean, how many people in this state have reached the breaking point of where, if they keep doing this and they get, they just force more people out of the state. And again, it's not those people who are on the progressive side of the spectrum who are receiving, Medicaid and SNAP and housing benefits or any other state programs. And it's not the people on the conservative, corporate cronyism side who've got jobs and businesses who are tied tightly to government and government spending. They're not the ones that are feeling it. It's all of us here in the middle. It's all of us here in the middle who aren't getting benefits from the social safety net or from the corporate cronyism net. We're the ones that are being squeezed out, and it's just compressing it, and it's not going to make a diamond. It's going to make a turd is what's going to do. It's just right in the middle, and we're the ones that are feeling it, and that's why the net migration of the state, the net out migration, is all the working age Alaskan families, that middle income folk who are just like, I could do this somewhere else. I could do this somewhere else where it's not quite so hard and not quite so hostile to me. That's what's going on. I mean, and that's why I agree, Kim. That's why I think you're seeing this declining and this depressed voter turnout. Not only is it because we have 106 or 108% of our voter rolls filled with people who are dead or don't live here, but on top of that, the low voter turnout is people says, what difference does it make? What difference does it make if I say this or if I vote for this? You guys are going to do what you want to do anyway because you are the elites. And you know better than us how we should spend our money. Right? I mean, this Kathy Giesel from our discussion yesterday on that Commonwealth North thing, just angry that they wasted, I hope you can hear the air quotes in that, wasted $685 million by giving it to the people. They could have taken that money and they could have backfilled Medicaid and they could have backfilled SNAP and they could have backfilled all these other social we could, and if you're worried about your PFD, you should just depend on those programs instead. Give us your money and depend on those programs. And that's where we're at right now. And this whole thing, again, and even and I know that Natasha is not in the legislature anymore. I know she's out of the legislature, but her viewpoint is still, I think, the viewpoint of most of the powers that be, the good old boys club, the business as usual people that are in the legislature. I think she's still carrying water for them. She's part of this Commonwealth North thing, the think tank where everybody's getting their ideas. And she has the same thing. She has a complete and utter disdain for the idea that there's a PFD. How dare we give money directly to the people? How dare we give the people their share of the oil wealth? And the thing is, again, just in case you're new to the show and you don't understand how the permanent fund dividend works and how everything else works, it's a fraction of the oil wealth in the state that we all own collectively. We're all owners. But instead of getting a direct payment for that, they take a chunk of it off, they put it into the investment account, they invest those things, then there's a return, and then we get a fraction of that return every year. So it's our money being put to work for us, and then the legislature has decided that they're going to take the lion's share of it and leave us in the cold. And now they're even begrudging us that little tiny bit. It's like it's an entire cake plate full of my favorite dark chocolate, sour cream, dark chocolate with delicious fudge frosting. It's like it's the whole cake. And not only did we get the tiniest, thinnest slice of that cake, now they've eaten all the frosting off of it and left us with one little chunk left on the plate. And now they want that chunk too. And you should be happy that you're getting any of it. You should be happy that you're getting this one little bite of this enormous cake. We've taken the rest of it, but you should be happy that you get this. No frosting for you. This is the attitude of these people. All of them, Mike Cronk included. I mean, when I saw that quote from Cronk, I was just like, what? I mean, what? When he sits there and hears the governor's plan, and then he's back to this whole straw man argument, this dichotomous argument, we're going to tax the people that are productive so that everyone gets a check. Mike, the check is fully funded. The check already had money behind it. The money was there. You guys decided to divert that money to spend on other things. You wouldn't be taxing people for the check. You'd be passing that money through to people the way it should have been, and you'd be taxing people for the services that they should be paying for. Again, when did smaller government people become no tax people? Because if you are in favor of smaller, more limited government, then by extension of that, you understand that that smaller limited government has to be funded. And the most efficient way to do it is to directly tax the people, not do it through some kind of stealth mechanism, not do it through essentially a withholding where you were due $3,500, you were due $4,000, but instead of giving you $4,000, they gave you $1,000 and told you to be happy about it. That's essentially what's happening right now. And then again, you get the Natashas out there. They're saying the quiet part out loud, my friends. They are saying the quiet part out loud right now. Oh, that's $685 million. That could be spent on so many other things. So many things that and again, the implication here, so many things that are more important than what you could do with the money, because they don't trust you to do things with the money. They know better than you how to spend it. So they don't trust you with the money. And again, going back to Natasha's GDP thing, look at us. We're way down here on the GDP. I mean, she's a banker, supposedly, right? She worked in banking and finance and did all that kind of stuff. And then she pulls up this GDP chart, and Alaska's way down at the bottom. And she goes, look at this GDP. We really need to expand. We need to spend more in the capital budget so that our GDP goes. You know why the GDP's in the toilet? Because you guys keep pulling money out of the private economy, which is what drives. It is the driver for the GDP. The only thing about an economy that creates is the private side. The public side is a net consumer. Oh, the dividend problem. We have the dividend. Where is that quote? I mean, I just want to get into it. The dividend problem. Where does she say?
Prioritize investment.
No, where's she say it? She goes, the dividend problem, the dividend conundrum. Here it is.
It's the dividend dilemma.
The dividend dilemma.
It's the dividend dilemma.
The dividend.
Stated in another way.
The dividend dilemma. This is Natasha von Imhoff. The dividend dilemma.
It's the dividend dilemma.
You know, why do we give this money to the people? Why do we do that? Because we could spend it so much better than they could. I mean, this is it. And you know what? I'm rapidly approaching that point to where I believe, you know what? Just just burn it to the ground. Run the whole thing right into the dirt. And you know what? Maybe we should start taking as much, you know, if there's a program that you can get on, if there's money that you can get, you might as well get it while you can. And just accelerate it until because the crash is coming. The crash is coming because we're going to run out of money. They're going to take the PFD. There'll be nothing left. Then they'll have to tax Alaskans on top of it, which will drive a whole nother portion of people out. And then what do you do? I mean, it's just madness, folks. It's just madness. And we've got a whole bunch of people who are supposedly small government folk, right? They're Republicans. They got the R next to their name. Small government folk who want to protect their way of life in the legislature. We couldn't possibly talk about taxes. Why? Why have we become so tax averse in this state? Because we've gotten everything we've ever wanted and dreamed of without taxes, and so we can't even possibly fathom. We just can't fathom it. We can't fathom that maybe a tax that directly comes on the people would help would help correct the course of the state. They'd much rather have it be a secret stealth tax. That's a secret stealth tax that comes out of the you don't see it, and then when it all goes away, they just feel like, oh well, you should just understand that now we've avoided taxes. I mean, we've taken your $4,000 PFD, your $3,500, $4,000 PFD. We've taken that, but we've avoided taxes. Be happy with that. All right. That's it. I'm gonna say something that's gonna garner me an FCC violation. All right, we're gonna be back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Randy, Michael, please rally us people in standing strong against the sales or income tax so as to stop the government from getting more. Randy, you just don't understand. You just don't understand. You're so wrapped up in the fact you want to give your full PFD away and then expect that they're going to be satisfied with that. That's like having somebody run a protection racket on you. You're running a store and they come in and they take $200 a week from you and you're just like, oh, that's great, but at least I don't have to. And then they come back for more and more and more. I mean, what happens, Randy, when they've taken your full $4,000 away? Your $3,500, $4,000 PFD, not just the $1,000 that then you send back to them. What happens after that? And they take all that and they spend all that. Then they come to you with a sales and income tax. You're just missing the whole point. Am I saying that voting doesn't work? I'm saying voting works, but the problem is that there's systems in place inside our government. And as Rob talks about, incentives in place that cause the people that we send down there to change their tune when they get there. David says, I agree, Michael. Run it into the dirt. Give the K-12 ed system all the money it demands and let it go down. Nothing will change until maybe the system destroys itself from within. I mean, give them another $1 billion. Give them another $1 billion. And then when they can't, produce a good product with that, then maybe people will wake up. I don't know. I mean, it's frustrating. The GDP statement, says Sourdough Steel, is the reason Alaska politics is a joke, and it doesn't matter who gets it at this point. There's a few good ones, but at this point, the ship has already left the dock. I mean, again, she's supposed to be a banker and a financier and all this kind of. That's her when they read her bio at the beginning. Oh, she's a blah, blah, blah. And she's like, this GDP is how. Why are we at the bottom? We need to spend more government money to increase our GDP. You understand that that's not what instead of getting a direct check for the oil royalties, says Brian, it gets laundered through what appears to me to be an organized crime family. Yes, that's pretty much it at this point. I'm sure they will ask for a bailout at the crash, says Joshua.
The dividend dilemma.
Yeah.
Stated in another way, I don't think we have a fiscal crisis. I think we have a priority crisis. But
I'm looking. Let me look through these. Let me look through these cuts here real quick because I
People should be informed of the consequences and the opportunity cost for each dollar that we allocate towards the PFD rather than other important things.
I mean, this is the gift that just keeps on giving.
They want jobs, they want housing, and they want our elected leaders to deal with the crime associated with the drug epidemic. They did not say they want an annual check. So the governor talked in his speech, he said a line, "We can support ourselves by creating more wealth from our resources." Yes, fully agreed. But would it make sense to build roads to those resources?
Rob just said, our GDP is at the bottom because we spend too much on government and don't have enough going to the private sector. I think that's just what I said, or at least that was what I was attempting to say, Rob. That, instead of putting the money in the private sector where it belongs and where it can turn and where it can generate revenue and wealth and jobs and everything else, instead they look to the government to do all that. That's the problem. Let me see here.
Prioritize investing in capital, infrastructure, and deferred maintenance. Share or balance the PFD allocation with capital investment in the millions of dollars.
All right, we're going to come back to this. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
See, Brad's got me all wound up. Although not as much as this chick. Not as much as this lady right here.
The dividend dilemma. Stated in another way, I don't think we have a fiscal crisis. I think we have a priority crisis.
We don't have a fiscal crisis. We have a priority crisis, meaning we're prioritizing putting a PFD in people's pockets rather than spending on a government where it belongs.
So this table represents the unrestricted general funds budget for the last 6 years. Education and health are the big ones on the far right. The PFD is on the far left, and I consider it is the 18th agency that competes, or in this case, dwarfs nearly a dozen other agencies, including capital on the far right. In the last 6 years, the collective agenda has been to spend billions of dollars on a cash payout rather than investing in meaningful capital projects or infrastructure or tourism visitor center or crisis treatment centers or roads to reach those resource opportunities.
Again, this is what she wants to spend. That's what she wants to spend the PFD on. She wants to spend the PFD on all those things: visitor center, tourism, all, crime prevention and drug addiction centers. How dare we take that 685? How dare we take a quarter or 20% of what we're owed as a PFD and not just be happy that we should be turning it over to government?
In the last 6 years, the collective agenda has been to spend billions of dollars on a cash payout rather than investing in meaningful capital projects or infrastructure or tourism visitor center or crisis treatment centers or roads to reach those resource opportunities.
Natasha.
But I will tell you that when any governor drops a budget in December 15th, that is so far out of line where the goalposts are not even on the field, they're in the town next town over, that it takes so much time and energy for the legislature to claw back the budget into something that is more based on realistic revenues.
Oh, poor baby. That the governor gives you a budget that you have to massage and work with anyway. We know you don't even care. When he gave you a flat budget, you guys were fighting about it. When he gave you a flat budget, you guys, and now it's like, now he gave you, how dare he? How dare you?
People should be informed of the consequences and the opportunity cost for each dollar that we allocate towards the PFD rather than other important things, primarily investing in our state and capital infrastructure.
So again, this is what the argument's going to become. Kathy Giesel started this. Natasha's competing it. I've heard other people say it. How dare we spend it on a dividend when we should be spending it and investing it on capital improvement? That's what it's about these days. Capital improvement.
They want jobs. They want.
This is what she collated all these different things. She said 48,000 comments on social media, and she put it through GPT and said, well, what's good and what's bad? What do they want? Why are they leaving? Why are they staying? This is what the Gen X, Gen Z, Alpha, Gen, whatever. This is what, not Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y, the Alpha, whatever, the younger millennials. This is what they want.
They want jobs. They want housing, and they want our elected leaders to deal with the crime associated with the drug epidemic. They did not say they want an annual check.
Nobody ever said they wanted a PFD. They didn't say that. I mean, was that one of the questions? No, they didn't say that. They wanted jobs. They wanted housing. Again, why is that? Is that government's job? They wanted jobs. They wanted housing. The one thing that does count in there is that they wanted the crime problem dealt with, but they didn't ever ask. They never asked for a check.
So the governor talked in a speech. He said a line, we can support ourselves by creating more wealth from our resources. Yes, fully agreed. But would it make sense to build roads to those resources?
So again, she's talking about taking the money, that PFD money, and putting it into the capital budget, which is the same thing that Kathy Giesel talked about earlier in the Commonwealth thing. It's the same thing that she said at the press conference 2 weeks ago, how we absolutely positively need to get this money to them right now because that's the economy. That's what grows the economy, is the capital budget.
And whether it's a sales tax or whether it's an income tax, it's taking discretionary money from people.
So this is, again, let me back that up here and jump into this a second earlier, because she's setting this up perfectly. All of a sudden, she cares about taking money from people.
But then he drops a bill with a statewide sales tax a few days after the speech. And whether it's a sales tax or whether it's an income tax, it's taking discretionary money from people.
What do you think taking the PFD does? I'm just asking. I'm asking for a friend. What do you think taking the PFD does? Oh, now they're worried about taking discretionary money from people. Now they're worried about it. I mean, they've taken, $3,000-$4,000 out of your pocket, but now they're worried about it. All of a sudden. I mean, is it me, or does it just seem really schizophrenic?
Using an ICER presentation as reference.
This is where she bags on ICER. And this is what I was talking about with Brad, because ICER apparently is just not good enough. The Institute for Socioeconomic Research at the University of Alaska Anchorage, which has been one of the cornerstone research institutions in the state for years, now it's not good enough.
Using an ICER presentation as reference. When I was on the Audit and Budget Committee, we hired Gaffney Klein, others are Wood McKinsey. These are trusted specialists in oil and gas taxes that are very understanding our complex taxes. Perhaps I plead to the sitting senators right now, maybe we can have them chime in.
I mean, did you hear that? These are specialists. ICER, not specialist enough. ICER, not special enough to do it. Again, she's telling you guys exactly what the mindset is. She said it at the beginning of this presentation. Remember, I'm not running for office. And I have no filter. She's telling you exactly what the finance or what the Senate leadership feel. She is emulating exactly what the Senate and quite honestly, the majority of senators feel.
And just so we're all on the same page, are we really truly taking money from one person's paycheck and then depositing it into their neighbor's bank account? And I have been on the record saying this on more than one time.
Are we? Yeah, you're already doing that. You're already taking money out and giving it to somebody else in the form of welfare, in the form of corporate cronyism. And now, because you got caught out and we said, we'd like to have our money, please, first before, and then you could tax it back to us. No, now it's, now it's a problem.
So recommendations. Always allocate the full DOT federal match available, always. Senators, please don't wait. Do not wait until May. Get it done now.
I mean, I don't know how much she's getting paid by the Association of General Contractors or these companies that are all waiting on the state to get their monies in. But I mean, this has been a full court press. Are you noticing that? This has been a full court press the whole time. Since the day session started, one of the major things you've been hearing about is getting this road funding out there, this capital budget out there. It's got to be out there now.
Prioritize investing in capital, infrastructure, and deferred maintenance.
She spends a good third of this whole thing talking about that specifically. Getting deferred maintenance out at the head of the list.
Share or balance the PFD allocation with capital investment in the millions of dollars.
Balance the PFD effort. Again, should we be spending it on you, the people, and taking the money out of other people's pocket, or should we be spending it on better things that we decide are more important?
Please invest towards revving the economy in mind, long term, not 2 years, 2 decades, but 2 generations.
Invest with revving the economy in mind. What is the economy? Again, it's all about the government economy, not about the private sector, not about the private spend. It's all about the government economy.
Yes, shoring up the programs. There's people that say we really, really need the cash to survive. Okay, shore up the programs for those Alaskans who depend on the check. Food security, rental assistance, utility assistance.
That's what she thinks. Shore up those programs for people who depend on the check. She doesn't depend on the check. She makes $1.5 million a year. She didn't give a crap. But if you depend on the check, and maybe it was for heating oil, maybe it was for putting tires on your car, maybe it was for buying new winter clothes for your kids who've outgrown them from the year before. None of the programs cover that stuff for middle Alaskan families. But no, let them eat cake. There's programs for those people. There's programs for those people.
Yes, shoring up the programs. There's people that say we really, really need the cash to survive. Okay, shore up the programs for those Alaskans who depend on the check. Food security, rental assistance, utility assistance.
That's it. Food security, rental assistance, utility assistance. That's it. Just feed those programs, take the PFD and put it in those programs and let them be happy. Let them eat cake.
If we do this, I don't think we need new taxes right off the bat.
Wait, what was that? What was that last one?
Right off the bat.
Oh, I mean, is it what?
Right off the bat.
If
we do this, I don't think we need new taxes right off the bat. That's just my feeling.
Right off the bat. Right off the bat. It's coming. I mean, she just basically said it there. It's coming. Folks, if you're not hearing this, if you're not seeing that, this is the mindset of basically most of the Senate. Not all of it. Oh, by the way, Rob Myers just pointed out ICER was also created by the legislature. So the legislature, so what the legislature creates isn't good enough for the legislature? Is that what she's saying? The legislature created ICER. You can't make this stuff up.
Lots of good things happening. Lots more to be done. I hope someday we can pass a new PFD calculation that is affordable and sustainable long into the future, that does not require new taxes to pay it, and allows for sufficient money to invest in capital and economic growth.
Which basically means zero. She wants zero. That's what's long-term sustainable and gets her capital spend and everything. Guys, this is it. Both her and Giesel have given you, they've told you everything you need to know about the mindset of the Senate and the legislature. That the majority of the leadership in both chambers a chunk of some of the minority in both chambers all feel the same way. I mean, this is this is it right here. That's the whole thing. All right, I need to wind down here. I need to wind down. Chris Story, the man from Homer, is about to join us and he's going to give us some opportunity. And what was the topic that it was good. Where is it? His topic today is macro loconomics, like living la vida loconomics. Macro loconomics. Chris Story's up next. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes. Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break. Chris Story is waiting in the wings. The wings. Let's bring him on board here and see what he has to say. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. On top of the world.
Sorry, I'm trying to change gears here. I'm having a hard time changing gears from what I was going over. So wait a second. I just remembered something. You were one of those guys who basically said, "Oh, well, I don't want to I don't want to tax to give other people a dividend," right? Do you still feel that way? Is that still how you feel about that?
That's definitely a mischaracterization of what I said.
Again, I have a poor memory.
Definitely.
Sometimes I misremember things. So explain to me your position on the PFD again, Chris. I want to know so that people know who to hate.
Man, you're just attacking with both guns. I just walked in. I said, "Cerveza, por favor," and you're like, "Show me your weapons."
That's right. Two-barrel sawed off right to the chest. That's what it's all about today.
I think I take issue with Brad's continuance of promoting class warfare by stating the top percent of the Alaskans don't pay any tax, and the working families, of which we all are getting hit the hardest. And so therefore we need a fully funded PFD based on the rolling average of the 5 years as per, set up by Jay Hammond, and tax the 1%, give them an income tax. And I just think, wait a minute, that seems like a false dichotomy. And that's what you and I were discussing.
Well, and maybe that was it back in the day. It was a flat tax that he was talking, not just taxing the top 1%. It was
but it's I know it was and I've also heard this argument from other people that if we had an income tax, people would become more engaged with what's going on in Juneau. And I'm like, no, sorry, that's not the case, because we're all affected by the permanent fund. And it affects every single Alaskan, even 2-year-olds and 1-year-olds. And so if that doesn't get us, quote unquote, engaged, what makes you think an income tax? So that's the conversation we were having. And I think I like to poke the bear once in a while and suggest to you certain things off air that just drive you nuts and watch your head explode. So it's enjoyable to me to just poke the bear from time to time and say, but really, isn't it just social welfare, Michael? Isn't that just no, it's not. I understand it's it's our inherent rights to the resources. I get it. But am I going to trade a full funded PFD, which nobody really knows even what that will be from year to year, in exchange for an income tax? No, I think that's not necessarily something I would promote. For sure not.
If you F with the bull, you get the horns, right? So I'm just
exactly. I always come out gored on this. I never win a debate with you, which is why I don't debate you. I just like to sort of like one of those. Remember the manager from the World Wrestling Federation that would come in once in a while? The guy wear a little bow tie and so forth, and he would come in and just provoke Macho Man Randy Savage or the Hulk or something, and he would jump out of the ring. That's me. I'm just provoking you, Macho Man Randy Savage / Michael Dukes.
So you're saying you're just a clown. You're just a rodeo clown.
Exactly, Michael. In your world, it's exactly all right. See, I'm here to make you look good.
Yeah, good job. Good job. All right. Well, you've made me laugh, which is good. So we're coming down to talk about the macro loca economics.
Yes.
I want to talk about that for sure, because it gets down into some of the details, a little bit of what we're talking about here, and hopefully it ties back into your. Hopefully you can tie it back into your flat tax, your fair tax component as well, and I'd love to hear about it. Big picture thinking applied where you actually live is kind of the definition of macro local economics. So I'm excited about that. What else is going on in Chris Story's world?
I'm having a great time selling real estate in this amazing community of ours and writing books. It's been a productive winter, I'll say. I've got 2 books in production right now that are to be published, I hope, in March. I was hoping for February, but it looks like it'll probably be March before I get them out. And I'm writing two more. I'm happily creative this winter, I would say. How about you? Are you finding time to be creative?
A little bit. You will have a new audiobook out in March as well. I'll have your next draft of your audio, which I said I was going to get done over Christmas, and I absolutely did not do it because I suck. But you'll have it out. You'll have it out for March, and you'll be ready to go. But no, I quite honestly, let's say yesterday. I'll tell you my tale of woe. I got up yesterday at 3:45 in the morning, and I quit work last night about 6:15. So that's I haven't had much time to be creative the last few weeks since the start of the year. It's been a little busy, but I got to make the time, Chris. Make the time. All right, here we go. We're jumping into it.
Chris Story, the obnoxiously positive and sometimes hilarious man from Homer, joins us every week to talk about pottery, positivity, and how not to become a nihilist. We're looking at you, Eric. It's the Michael Dukes Show.
Oh, sometimes I like to pull an oldie but a goodie out from the backstory there. He's going to teach us how to not become a nihilist. Chris Story. You can find him, by the way, at ilovehomeralaska.com. He's a realtor. He's an author. He's a radio show host. He's a potter. No, the other kind of pot. And he's here to tell us exactly how not to become a nihilist he's going to get deep with us today. He's going to get deep cuts in the queue, talking about macro loco economics. Hello, Mr. Story.
You know me, Michael. I'm a wordsmith, if nothing. And so I decided to take action on something I have been feeling and put it into a word, a new word, a combination of words. James Webb Young wrote a book in 1965 called How to Generate or How to Create Ideas. And one of the things he said is if you combine existing ideas, but also you look at relationships. And those are the 2 facets of creating ideas. Now, he was an ad man, your typical think about, Mad Men. That's the world with which he emanated from. But I love that idea of combining things in a new way or looking at the relationship of 2 things that might even seem to be somewhat opposing. So just take, for example, macro-loconomics. And macro-loconomics is essentially just what you said a bit ago. It's big picture thinking applied where you actually live. And so you think macro and local don't necessarily go hand in hand, but they do. So hear me out, and I think you'll become a devotee of macro-loconomics, which I hope catches on. Although, I'm not going to be offended if people say, that Michael Dukes created this. That's fine. I'll gladly.
Hey, I just made it look good. That's all I'm saying. That's all
That's right. That's right. Just like the fedora you tried to bring back a couple of years ago. It's a long story. But the idea is acting local. So, we think in terms of that a bumper sticker about, think global and act local. This is about thinking big and macro, meaning at scale locally. In other words, it's not just one slice of the pie that you concern yourself with. So many of us have single interests, like we are interested in what we're interested in, and that becomes our sole focus. My thought with macroeconomics is essentially this: go wide. Pay attention to a variety, a number of things at scale in your local environment. So we've been doing the Backyard Millionaire as a segment on my one iteration or another of my radio show for almost 19 years. The idea that you can become a millionaire, you can create wealth if you choose it and want it, where you live with what you've got, is essentially a demonstration of macroeconomics, that you can at scale invest in your own small pond and actually create something notable and something of wealth. Likewise, you can pay attention to what's happening at City Hall and at your borough. Let's just take that as our macroeconomics area of the Kenai Peninsula. Okay, Michael, for you and me. So we should be paying attention to what's happening at the borough assembly very closely, and what the borough mayor's up to. We should be paying attention not just to assembly politics, though, but our local city, and not just our city, but what's happening even deeper at the planning department, what's happening within the bowels of public works, what's happening within the framework of this new comprehensive plan. So many of us have a interest, like I say, in maybe it's tourism, or maybe it's communications, or maybe it's real estate or development, or a single industry within this local area. I'm suggesting we at scale pay attention and become involved, just like we watch, not we, but euphemistically, we'll just say, or around the country, we watch CNN 24/7. It's available 24/7. Not much is available locally at that level. I would like to see more of that. So there's such opportunity for all of us to get involved at a local level in a macro way, whereby we're using things like these terms at scale, which you don't think about in your local community. So it's a bit of a dichotomy that I'm trying to break open to say, think in terms of your local community, just like you know about what's happening in Ukraine and Iran and Afghanistan, and you know what's going on with a potential kidnapping situation. We know about what's going on around the world right now. Infinitum, we know everything in detail. But what do you know at that level locally, where you are with what you've got, which is where you're going to have the biggest impression and the most influence?
I feel a little attacked here, because this is what I've been talking about for years.
But you didn't have the wrapper. I just put a wrapper around the candy bar.
You put a beautiful bow on it, because exactly what. How many of us can talk about all the people who appear in the Epstein files, yet we can't name our city council members or our borough assembly members, right? We can't name who's in charge of the plating or planning board, things that truly affect us. Who's running the dog catcher? We can't name any of those things, but we could tell you what the last three things were that appeared on the Senate floor, or what the president's doing, or the latest from Minneapolis or California or wherever. We're focused on all that, but we're not even paying attention to what's happening in our own backyard.
And short-term rentals, let's just take that on for just 1 second here. Airbnbs, essentially, the regulation thereof or lack of in your community. And you could say, well, they'll figure it out. But who's they'll? And by the way, every time our local government starts to attack or tackle this issue, they always approach it from a tax or regulatory way. In other words, we're going to create a business license. I just opposed this so vociferously. And about 3 years ago, they were, the solution is we'll create a business license. No, that's just another layer of bureaucracy. It's a tax, essentially. Or, we literally will tax short-term rentals. And that doesn't affect your quality of life as a neighbor living next to one, doesn't affect your quality of life looking for available housing that is maybe being consumed or subsumed by this act. It's something that people should be talking about, not just those at the planning or the city council level, but need to be talking about at dinner and on the streets.
That when government only has two hammers, right? One is taxation, the other is regulation. So if you leave it to them and ask them to fix a problem, they'll regulate it and tax it to death. That's what they'll do. Right. There is no other solution to it. It's all regulation and taxation.
And so when you think in terms of macroeconomics, which it just brings a smile to my face to even say it, it's rejecting the idea of single issue thinking, and election day engagement. And we're all a little guilty of that, like election day engagement, and then we sort of move on. Or this national outrage about something. You mentioned the Epstein files, and I searched your name, Michael. I'd be honest, and I couldn't find it. I was not surprised, of course. But anyway, we think about these things in that macro way, and it's good to be informed. I think it is good to know the news of the world, so long as it doesn't become a spectator sport per se, because how many times have you yelled at the television watching a football or soccer, basketball, and the reality is, if you're not even in the stadium watching necessarily, how close to a spectator sport is it? And definitely nobody's asking your opinion on what the play should be next. So we have to think in terms of this is beyond just becoming aware, but we also need to be involved at that local level. You mentioned maybe we'd have an opportunity to talk about the Fair Tax Act. I would love to talk about that at a micro level. But the fact of the matter is, because of state statute, we found that we couldn't even go micro. We had to go macro, meaning statewide. But even still, we're not concerning ourselves what they think in DC on the topic. We're only concerning ourselves at a local level, statewide. And of 700,000 people, surely we could solve our own problem and dilemma relative to assessments outpacing the actual growth of real estate values, in addition to can we tackle the conversation about being taxed on unrealized gains. So those kinds of things can happen at a state level and still fit, I think, the macroeconomics philosophy, which is to say we're paying attention where we can have an influence and make impact and make our lives better. And ultimately, this is what we'll be remembered for, and this is what we'll remember most when it counts.
Chris Story is our guest, the man from Homer. Summate for me, Chris. We've got about just over a minute here.
Well, look, I'm suggesting that we all get involved. I'm not suggesting that I've got this figured out, but if we had some wrapper to put around the candy bar of what you and I have been talking about between becoming a backyard millionaire and or your tactical approach towards getting involved at a local level and make a difference in your own state, be it around the PFD or the way legislation is handled, what I'm saying is you matter most where you are. So macroeconomics means get involved locally at scale, not just on a single issue.
All right, Chris Story, our guest. Thank you so much, Chris. As always, my friend, you've talked me off the ledge again. That's the only reason why I have him on, is to talk me off the ledge after talking with Brad every Tuesday. It's all good. It's always something good. Macro local economics. I like it. I want to, we should develop this more and talk more about this. I think this is important. Anyway, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being on board today.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be with you.
Focus on things you actually have power to influence. I think that's a great point. Thanks, Joshua. Out of time, my friends. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, Chris, I thought this is a great comment from Joshua. And this kind of summates what you're talking about. Focus on things you actually have the power to influence, which kind of summates what my position is on this, and focusing on local and ignore more what's going on out there. Your position is a little bit more nuanced in that we need to pay closer attention to that and weave it into a broader plan. But focus on things you actually have power to influence. Final thoughts, Chris.
Yeah, agreed 100%. It's a little bit like if you went to work every day and you were so focused on your boss's family and just you came home every day talking about, man, you're not going to believe what Jane did and what Tom said and their kids are up to. Meanwhile, your house is falling apart. Meanwhile, your water got shut off because you didn't pay the bill, and your power is shut off, and your kids are hungry. It's like, no. Fix your families, get as local and concentric, as close to you as you can, and move out and circles from there in your community where you are with what you've got.
I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks because I've been thinking it for a while, but it's like we're fighting over the house while it's on fire. Who's going to rule over the ashes? That's what's going on. We're not paying attention. We're paying attention to the long-term thing outside, the outside influence, and the house is burning down around us. So we're going to fight over who's going to get to rule over the ashes. Let's put the house out first, right? I mean, that should be what we should need to do.
You got it.
All right. Well, my friend, thank you so much. As always, it's great to talk with you. We appreciate you and all you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Take care. Bye.
You can find him at ilovehomeralaska.com. Chris Story. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of the show for today. We will see you guys tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.